first graders, it's Miss Van Wert. I hope you had a wonderful winter break and enjoyed time with your family and celebrating holidays. We are going to review what we've learned in this unit for CKLA so far because I'm sure that your brains are a little bit rusty. So here we go. All right. Who remembers where the Maya lived? Where did the Maya live? Do you remember? The Maya lived on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, which is on the continent of North America, okay? And so that was the Maya. And what about the Aztec? Who can remember where the Aztec lived? Remember, the Aztec also lived on the continent of North America. The Aztec lived over here near Mexico City, okay? So that is where they lived. Let me see if I can erase all that. Okay, get back to my pen. Okay, so let's do a little refresher on the Maya. So I'm going to show you some pictures that are hopefully going to help your brain remember some things that we read about and we learned about, and we're just going to brainstorm things that we learned about each of them. So we're going to start with our vocabulary. So we learned about the word harvest, and remember, harvest was a verb. Do you remember? Look at this picture if you need help. What the word harvest meant? Harvest meant to gather crops, right? So when we look at this picture, we can see there are people gathering crops. It looks like sweet potatoes or something. You can see some tomatoes behind them. So a way we could use it in a sentence would be, the girl and her father harvest lettuce every spring. And the Maya, what did they harvest? Do you remember what they harvested? Do you remember? Look at this picture right here. What does that kind of look like? Corn! But they didn't call it corn. What did they call it? Maize. And do you remember who gathered or who harvested their crops? It was the family, right? And what else did we, speaking of family, were families important to the Mayans? Yeah, they were really close with their family. Remember, they relied on their family to help them, okay? All right. Thrilled. Looking at this picture, what does the word thrilled mean? Remember, thrilled is an adjective, meaning it is a descriptive word, which just means that it describes a person or a thing. Thrilled. What does thrilled mean? It means extremely excited. The children were thrilled to have a new puppy. I am thrilled that we are back. I missed you guys. Okay, look at this picture. We're still talking about the Maya. What is this a picture of? A pyramid. And what does it help us think of? Religion. So let's think about the Maya religion. Did they believe in one god or many gods and goddesses? Many gods and goddesses. Do you remember what the fancy name for that is? It's a long word. Polytheistic, okay? Polytheistic. The Maya were polytheistic. They believed that there was a god of corn and a god for the stars, and we're going to get into that a little bit more in a little bit, okay? But they believed in many gods and goddesses. Okay, this is the word constructing, which is a verb, another action word. What does constructing mean? Do you remember? Constructing means building and putting together, okay? After spending time constructing her tower of blocks, the girl was disappointed when it was knocked over. Okay, what does this help you remember? What does this make you think of for the Maya? Their leaders, more specifically, King Pakal. Do you remember reading about him? He was the one who had that fancy tomb and all that jewelry that was made of jade. And what else did he have? Those fancy bright clothes. And did he walk on the ground? No. What happened? How did he get places? People carried him around, okay? And what about this? This was the city of Baakal, right? Which was the Mayan city, okay? And this is where Pick and Ekel and Zook and Tun and Chenille and Canal, it's where they all went, right? For the festival of the first star, okay? This is the word accurate. What does accurate mean? Can you remember what accurate means? Accurate means correct or right, okay? The boy was pleased when his answer to the teacher's question was accurate. All right, so looking at these pictures, what do we remember about the Maya? Think about the festival of the first star. Was the first star really a star? No, it wasn't. It was a planet. Do you remember the name of the planet? It was Venus. And do you remember why the Mayans liked to look at the stars and the planets and why they observed them and took notes about their movements? Do you remember why? It was because they thought that those stars and those planets were what? They thought they were gods and goddesses, right? And they built these things on high ground, so at the top of pyramids, at the top of temples, on the top of hills, so that they would be closer to the stars and planets so they could see them better and observe them better. But what were those places called? Observatories, okay? That's what they built so that they could watch the stars and the planets, which they believed to be gods, better so that they could track the movements. And what did they do when they were tracking those movements and observing all of that? What did they create? It has something to do with the vocabulary word accurate. They created an accurate calendar, okay? One that we still use today. Very cool, right? And they did that by watching the movement of the stars and the planets. Okay, and this is a picture of King Khanbalone, and he is up in the temple. What was he doing? This was on the festival of the first star. What was he doing? What did he go up there and do? He went into the temple and he asked the gods to be kind to his people. And he thanked the gods for all of the good things that the gods had already done for the people, okay? And those are the people down there, including Chenille and Ekel and Canal and Pick and Tun and Zook, who are all cheering for him because he asked the gods to help them out, right? Okay, now let's review a little bit about the Aztec. So we're still going to be learning about the Aztec, but let's review what we've already learned about the Aztec. So we remember that the Aztec lived in what we now call Mexico City, which is still part of North America. All right, this is the vocabulary word awe. Who remembers what it means? You can use the picture to help you. Awe means wonder or surprise. The children stared in awe at the giant elephant. Okay. Oh, what is this a picture of? And what does it help us remember? It's a picture of an eagle eating a snake or serpent while standing on a cactus. And what's the big deal about that? It was a sign, but it was a sign from who? The gods, right? The Aztec gods. And they were looking for a sign, and that sign would mean that they were home and they could finally settle. Because remember, they had been traveling, they were on a journey, and they would stop for a little while, but then they would move on because they had to wait until they found the sign, which was an eagle eating a snake or serpent while standing on a cactus. Who remembers why they had to leave their home in the first place? Because their land dried out, right? And they couldn't plant their crops because the land was too dry. So they didn't have any food. So they had to move. But they were moving for a very, very long time. Okay. And what does this tell us about the Aztec? This tells us that they believe in one or many gods. Many, which means that they are monotheistic or polytheistic. Polytheistic, okay. All right, this is the word stationary, and it is an adjective. Remember, adjectives are our descriptive words, meaning they describe someone or something. So stationary, what does stationary mean? Still or set in one place, okay? The statue is a stationary object in the park. Excuse me. All right, what is this a picture of? The Chinampas, okay? And the Chinampas were what? They were floating gardens that the Aztec had, right? And they made them. How did they make them? They took reeds and branches and they tied them together, and then they put what on top? They covered them in mud, right? Lots and lots of mud from the bottom of the lake. And then over time, the roots, they came into the water and they got stuck to the bottom of the lake, right? They grew into the bottom of the lake so that those Chinampas were not floating away, right? They were stationary, okay? And what did they make the Chinampas for? What was the point? To grow crops. Do you remember what kind of crops they grew? They grew maize, which is corn. They grew beans and squash and tomatoes and chili peppers, okay? So they grew all of those things. All right. This is an emperor. What is an emperor? An emperor is the ruler of an empire, kind of like a king. Her favorite tale was the one about the emperor and his new clothes. Who is this? Moctezuma, okay? And Moctezuma was the emperor of the Aztec, okay? He was super, super wealthy. Remember, he would sleep on his bed sheets one time and then throw them away. He would eat off of plates one time and then throw them away. Okay, very, very wealthy, meaning he was very, very rich. Okay, and what about this? Tenochtitlan, which was what? The Aztec city, okay? And it was very big, right? It was pretty big. Okay. All right. And that is all of our review. So hopefully these pictures helped you review and remember some things. And that way we will be ready for our lesson tomorrow, where we're going to learn a little more about the Aztec people, okay? I want you to do your Nearpod review so that you can remember all of these things and they stick in your brain, because we did have a pretty nice long break, okay? See you next time. Bye.